12 facts about the deindustrialization of America that will blow your mind, Michael Snyder reports. And this is a picture that we have of a factory, abandoned factory in Detroit. Look at all these buildings. The United States is rapidly becoming a post-industrial nation. All great economic empires eventually become fat and lazy and squander the great wealth that their forefathers left them. But the pace at which America is doing this is absolutely breathtaking. Nobody can deny that our country is a complete and utter mess right now, and we only have ourselves to blame. It was America that was at the forefront of the Industrial Revolution. It was America that showed the world how to mass produce everything from automobiles to televisions to airplanes. It was the great American manufacturing base that crushed Germany and Japan in World War II. In fact, the primary reason why we won World War II is because we simply outproduced our enemies. But now we're witnessing the deindustrialization of America. Tens of thousands of factories have left the United States over the past several decades. Millions upon millions of manufacturing jobs have been lost during that same time period. The United States has become a nation that consumes everything in sight and yet produces very little. Do you know what one of our biggest exports is today? Waste paper. Yes, trash has literally become one of our top exports as we voraciously blow our money on whatever the rest of the world wants to sell to us. The United States has become bloated and spoiled, and our economy is now just a shadow of what it once was. Once upon a time, America could literally outproduce the rest of the world combined. Today that is no longer true, but Americans do consume more than anyone else in the world. If the deindustrialization of America continues at this current pace, what kind of a future are we going to leave our children and our grandchildren? Throughout history, every great nation has been great at making things. So if the United States continues to allow its manufacturing base to erode at a staggering pace, how in the world can the U.S. continue to consider itself to be a great nation? We have created the biggest debt bubble in the history of the world, and in an effort to maintain a very high standard of living. But the current state of affairs is not anywhere close to sustainable. Every single month, America goes into more debt, and every single month, America gets poorer. So what happens when our debt bubble finally implodes? The deindustrialization of the United States should be a top concern for every man, woman, and child in this country. Sadly, the truth is that most Americans do not have any idea what is really going on out there. If you know people like that, take this article, print it out, and hand it to them. Perhaps they will what they read below will shock them badly enough to awaken them out of their slumber. The following are 12 facts about the deindustrialization of America that will blow your mind. Number 1, according to Google AI, our nation has lost almost 70,000 factories since the year 2000. 70,000. The United States has lost nearly 70,000 factories since 2000. This is part of a larger decline in the U.S. manufacturing sector that has also resulted in the loss of over 5 million jobs. 2, in July 1979, 19.5 million Americans had manufacturing jobs. Today, only 12.8 million Americans have manufacturing jobs, even though our population is much larger than it was in 1979. 3, according to a survey that was recently conducted by the Pew Research Center, 59% of Americans believe that the U.S. has a lot more than it has gained from free trade. Number 4, 1959 manufacturing represented 28% of all U.S. economic output. At the beginning of the Great Recession in 2008, manufacturing represented only 11.5% of all U.S. economic output. Today, manufacturing represents just 10.3% of all U.S. economic output. Number 5, more than 1 billion cell phones are sold worldwide each year. Only a few thousand of them are actually manufactured in the United States. 6, the size of our trade deficit with China in 2024 was $295 trillion. Number 7, at this point, China produces approximately 4 times as many vehicles each year than the United States does. 8, in the early days of the industry, 100% of all semiconductors were manufactured in the United States. Today, that number is down to just 8%. Number 9, Russia is producing 3 times as many military artillery shells as the US and Europe combined. Number 10, the United States spends approximately $3 on Chinese goods for every $1 that the Chinese spend on goods from the United States. 11, our stores are absolutely overflowing with products that are made in China. Meanwhile, soybeans are the number 1 export from the US to China. 12, more than 36 million Americans are now living in poverty. Homelessness in the US is at an all-time record high, and demand at food banks in the US is at record levels all over the nation. Are you starting to get the picture? How many more factories do we need to lose before we do something about it? And how many more Americans are going to lose manufacturing jobs before we all admit that we have a very, very serious problem on our hands? How many more trillions of dollars are going to leave this country before we realize that we're losing wealth at a pace that is killing our economy? How many once great manufacturing cities like Gary, Indiana, and Youngstown, Ohio, are going to become rotting, decaying hellholes before we understand that we're committing national economic suicide? The deindustrialization of America is a national crisis. It needs to be treated like one. Can anyone out there possibly explain how a deindustrialized America has any kind of viable economic future? Every month, far more money goes out of this country than comes into it because we buy far more from the rest of the world than they buy from us. As a result, we have to beg the rest of the world to lend us money just so that we can pay our bills. Our national debt is now up to $36 trillion, and the total amount of debt in our society is now up to $101 trillion. I've been ranting about all of this for over a decade, but most of the country refuses to listen to those of us that are relentlessly sounding the alarm. America is in deep, deep trouble, folks, and it's time to wake up. And this is on the Economic Collapse blog by Michael Snyder. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. This is by Michael Snyder, and about the author. Michael Snyder's new book entitled Why is available on paperback and for Kindle on Amazon. He's also written 8 other books that are available on Amazon, including Chaos, End Times, 7-Year Apocalypse, Lost Prophecies of the Future of America, The Beginning of the End, and Living a Life That Really Matters. When you purchase any of Michael's books, you help to support the work that he's doing. You can also get his articles by email as soon as he publishes them by subscribing to his Substack newsletter. Michael has published thousands of articles on the Economic Collapse blog, End of the American Dream, and the Most Important News, and he's always freely and happily allowed others to republish those articles on their own websites. These are such troubled times and people need hope. John 3:16 tells us about the hope that God has given us through Jesus Christ. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. If you have not already done so, we strongly urge you to invite Jesus Christ to be your Lord and Savior today. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.